started having this feeling of writing something down about the painting that I was sketching. So I was thinking of something, but I didn't need to think. I was just writing effortlessly. And when I started writing and I showed it to my mom, she's just, what is these words coming from? And I said, it's from God. Then I used to go to school at that time, so I showed it to my art class. It's like show and tell, and all the students were like this, oh my gosh, did you write that? And I thought everybody could write the same thing as I. But when I started getting a little older, I understood that God gave me this gift to share with others, to teach others what He gave me. The day I was born, I met myself. The day I was born, I met my young mother. The day I was born, I met Christ sleeping in my cradle.
It's not the indigo children, it's not the crystal children or the rainbow children, it's the children of today. So when you start to categorize, we are again putting labels on something.
We're a society that loves labels, and it wants to compartmentalize, and humans kind of do it by nature. We like to put things into their place and have everything have its little perfect place where it's supposed to be. But in the process of saying that there's a separate phenomenon of indigo children or crystal children or whatever it happens to be, we forget that every human being that's brought on this planet has a gift. They're all gifted. We're all gifted. We all have something special about us.
I would try not to use any terminology whatsoever. I would try very, very much not to do any labeling. But since this is a world that uses verbal communication, I would try to use as few words as possible. I would use the one word, developed. They have a development that is different than other people, other individuals.
Say you're an indigo, and somebody comes up to you and asks you a question of something. Say it's your mom or dad, they come up to you, ask you something, or your friends or anything. They come up and ask you something about their life that you don't know about, and you could tell them what it was and how it happened and everything like that. And then they just look at you and say, "You're freaky," or something like that.
I honor that there are children who are very special. However, I have not met one yet that is not or does not have the capability of becoming very special.
I'd like to believe that our whole society, our whole world, is evolving together. Some may be a little faster than others, but hopefully everyone is evolving together as human beings.
I think the dangers of labeling indigo children as one thing or another is that we'll start believing the labels, and we will sidestep the authentic experience that's right in front of us, or we will adjust our experience of what's actually going on in order to fit it into our preconceived notion of what the label suggests it ought to be.
Putting the label indigo, on somebody kind of is almost, or was for me, almost intimidating to live up to. Because, you hear all this stuff like, wow, so if I'm indigo, does that mean I can never wake up and have a bad morning? Does that mean I can never, never have it get into a bad mood? Mm-hmm. So I think the label might be a little limiting sometimes, but once I realize, wait a second, we're just kids who want to make the world a better place.
One day, we will do away with the labels and we will just call them children. We will call them humans. But for now, I think it is important to have labels, because if we don't label them, other people will. They're already being labeled. They're being labeled dyslexic, autistic, disruptive, troublesome, ADHD, ADD, problem children. And I think that if we don't create a different kind of label for them, then mainstream society will.
When Joshua was about 3, we'd just arrived in New Zealand and we were on a bit of a road trip around, looking around the country. He and I were driving around one day I think we were looking for a beach to go skip stones on or something, and we were just quiet. I was sort of drifting along, not really saying anything, and all of a sudden, just out of the blue, Joshy said, "Hey, Dad, who was Michelangelo?" And I just kind of thought about it for a sec. I said, "Well, he was an artist, buddy." And he thought about it for a minute, and he said, "Oh, yeah. He painted the sky, didn't he?" And I thought about it for a second. I said, well, yeah, he did. He painted the sky in big churches and things. And he said, I said, why? He said, I said, why, did you know him or something? And he said, yeah, I knew him. He was a good man. And that, of course, sparked my interest even more. And I said, well, tell me a little bit more about that, Joshy. What do you mean? And he goes, Dad, that was a long time ago. And that was pretty much the end of that conversation.
There's always been some, quote, indigo children on the planet. Always, since the beginning of time. It's just that what's happening now is that there's masses of children being born who are, in fact, enlightened.
The last time the indigos were incarnate on the planet in the numbers they are now was probably in the 12th, 13th centuries. And they were known at that time as the Gnostics, as the Cathars, as the Bogomils, the heterodox Christians. In other words, the heretics.
Some early examples are Joan of Arc and also Bernadette Soubirous, also known as Saint Bernadette. These were strong-willed, very tuned-in young people who changed the world.
Here you have, on the one hand, these kids that are incredibly gifted. Some were remembering their lives before they were even born. You know, before they were even in utero. There were so many stories I was hearing of one child who actually told her mummy that before she was born, before she was even in her mummy's tummy, she used to watch her mummy. And she actually described several things that her mother had done, so that her mother knew that she was telling the truth, because how could the child know? And she was waiting for the moment to come in, and she said, I chose you. I chose to come into your tummy.
My kids and I were making Valentines for their classroom, and my Leia was sitting on my lap, and my two oldest children were at the kitchen table with us, and my Leia was just looking up into my eyes, and then all of a sudden she noticed her reflection, and she says, wow, Mama, I can see myself in your eyes. And I said, yes, honey, I can see myself in your eyes. I said, isn't that beautiful? We can see ourselves in each other. And she smiled. She said, yes, just like I was Grandma Marlene. And I then said, well, tell me a little bit about that. And she said, well, my body got very sick. I was very, very sick. And she said, and the doctors tried to help me, but my body was way too sick. So she said, my body died. And she said, and then my body got colder and colder and colder. And when she said this, there was such an intensity to which she said it. And her body, my mother's body, was put on ice for 3 days. So then my Leia says, and then the two men came to the house, which two men did. And she said, and they put my body into a box, which they indeed did. And then they took my body to a place that had a big oven. And she said, and my body was burnt. And she said, and my spirit went up with the angels. She said, but I wasn't an angel. I just was with the angels watching you guys, watching all of you. She said, and then I was a baby, and now I'm my Leia. She seems to be overcome by the clarity of her experience. She then says, I'm scared. And I just know intuitively that I need to sing this song, although it's not something I commonly sing to my kids. I started singing He's Got the Whole World in His Hands. And Angelina also joined me, and within a few words of the song, my Leia then grabs my cheeks fiercely and looks me right in the eyes and says, that was the song